pointing guns at my brothers, killing somebody's kids. Black on black, black on black, white on black, black on white. Ain't none of it right.
David Null doesn't seem to recognize himself. YouTube video of him before the brain injury, speaking out on violence, the kind he saw growing up.
Or since our fall has our desire driven us insane.
You don't remember that? You remember the words?
Wife Becky uses the videos to stimulate David, and something seems to be coming back to him, a whisper of the man he once was.
Conquer and destroy each other's dreams. I'll never understand that I am. I'll never understand the black man.
It's just, everything changed in an instant, and it's so hard. It's so hard to look at those. It's so hard to look at pictures of him the way he was, his videos that he posted on YouTube, because like when he posted those, I had literally just met him. So that was the man that I had fallen in love with. It's hard because it's like our whole life was in front of us. And we've been married 8 years, and for 5 of them, he's had this injury.
Injured when Painesville police officer Robert Soto shot David twice with his taser. The barbs hit David's chest near his heart. He had no shirt on. It was clear he was unarmed. It lasted 26 seconds, even though Soto is trained to limit tasing to 5 seconds. The extended tasing to the chest sent David into a foreseeable respiratory and cardiac arrest, cutting off oxygen to David's brain, leaving him childlike and permanently damaged.
Come on, I gotta get you up. Okay? Yes.
David sleeps with a teddy bear. They're all over the couple's room. They comfort him like they would comfort a little boy.
Oh, I gotta do it now? Yeah. Another one? Come on.
He's like the child I always wanted. You know what I mean? Like I've always, and I mean, I care for him that way. Sometimes when I think that this is it, this is going to be my life forever, it's overwhelming. But I can't think past that. I can't think beyond that. I can't think of it not having him here.
Here is her mother and father's home in Painesville. Becky's sister and niece live here too. Everyone pitches in to take care of David while Becky works.
Hot. So sometimes you have to remind him that it's hot or he will burn himself.
David eats but can't fix his own food. He can't be left alone. He wanders around the house and may try to go outside. He has no attention span and can't even remember their wedding. Becky uses the pictures as a brain exercise.
Our wedding? When did we get married? Do you remember? Do you remember when? No.
I don't feel like I have a husband anymore. I have a child. And I feel that he loves me back like a child would love a caregiver, a mother. You know, I feel like that's the type of relationship we have, and it's not just me towards him, it's him towards me. You know? There's no other. I mean, when he gives me a kiss, it's like a child, you know, like a child would kiss you, you know?
Somebody needs to interact with him and keep him stimulated. You have to be loving to him. You know, he's like a kid, and he asks the same things over and over, and you just answer them. Sometimes I fight it, the anger, and I'm incredulous about this is the reality and how it happened and why it happened, and the fact that nobody cares that it happened. And
Pat believes the police officers who responded to the noise complaint at the Knowles apartment saw a black man with tattoos and judged him. Tattoos from his past. When he was a teenager, he shot someone and paid for it behind bars.
He didn't want to go back. You know, he just did not want to go back. And, you know, I know he loved me, and he didn't want to leave me. And he promised me he'd never leave me. So I think a lot of that was where he struggled and he wanted to do the right thing.
The mistakes made that December night in 2010 were made by police officers. Officer Soto responded to the noise complaint with a taser behind his hip.
They told him to step outside, and he's like, no, I don't have to step outside, which he didn't. And then the next thing you hear is like a boom, like they kicked the door open, because he didn't close it all the way. And I mean, it just happened so fast. So when that happened, when they kicked the door open, he turned around and he was facing them. And I mean, they never told him that he was under arrest. They never said, anything. They just tasered him.
The barb struck David's chest, and Soto held down the trigger for 21 seconds, even though Taser International warns against chest deployment because of the possibility of cardiac arrest and deployments over 5 seconds. The taser training Painesville police received warned officers should only apply the number of cycles reasonably necessary to allow them to safely restrain the subject.
But it just seemed like it was going on forever, like it just didn't end. And then, everybody was, I'm screaming, Robin was screaming, like everybody in the house was like freaking out, and they kept telling us to shut up. He was like foaming at the mouth. His wrists were curling up underneath his chin. I mean, he definitely had no control of his, of his body at all. Like they kept telling him to put his hands behind his back. And I don't remember, I seem to remember somebody screaming that he couldn't, and I'm thinking, they should have known that. Like you could tell he couldn't. And instead they're saying that he was actively resisting.
The desperate 911 call, calling the police on the police.
What I'm trying to tell you is Dave knocked on the door. He opened the door. Next thing I knew, he was being tasered.
Okay.
Then they asked him to put his hands behind his behind his back, and he couldn't because of the shock. He couldn't because of the shock. Foam was coming out of his mouth. So, and then they said he's resisting arrest. He couldn't put his hands behind his back because they shocked him so bad.
Taser training includes what happens to the body when tased. The electric current jolts through the nervous system, making muscles tense and electrical pulses to the brain unreadable. It's called neuromuscular incapacitation. David Nall wasn't resisting arrest. He couldn't control his body. Still, the tasing wasn't over. Soto shocked him again, a second time. All that screaming got Becky arrested for disorderly conduct.
I'm in the car, and he comes out, and he was like, what's he on? What's he on? And I'm like, he's not on anything. He's been drinking Budweiser all day.
David Nall was drunk in his own home. Perhaps he deserved a citation for making noise. Months later, Painesville police charged David with resisting arrest and David and Becky with disorderly conduct. Charges against them were dropped because the officers were not justified in entering the apartment. Police practices expert Professor Michael Lyman says the deployment of the taser by Officer Soto was improper, excessive, and served no reasonable purpose, and not consistent with Painesville police policy or nationally recognized standards. Officer Soto says he thought the taser would automatically stop discharging after 5 seconds.
I don't buy that, not one bit. I'm like, what are you basically saying? You don't know how your equipment works. And I don't believe that. And if that is the case, that's not a valid excuse. I mean, ignorance is not an excuse. It does not excuse what you did, just because you didn't know. And if you didn't know, then you weren't properly trained, and you shouldn't have carried that taser.
They didn't think he was anything, so they didn't care. They did whatever they wanted to him. And then even when there was a chance to help him, they didn't. And they protected themselves. And they didn't even tell the paramedics that he'd been tased for a prolonged period of time.
Dr. M.B. Waxman with the University of Toronto says that taser application with darts near his heart and on David's back resulted in lack of circulation and interruption of respiratory function, resulting in lack of oxygen to David's brain, leading to brain injury. He concludes David's brain injury was caused by the tasing by Painesville police officers. David was in the hospital 2 weeks. The neuropsychological evaluation at the Beechwood, Ohio Memory and Cognitive Center said he suffered from global and severe cognitive impairment, is unable to engage in decision-making and processes necessary to manage his self-care and finances. The family came together to care for David. A calendar helps make sure someone is always on what they call David duty.
What is going to happen when we're not here? You know, it's like we are a nest. This is a nest for them, and we're happy to do it. But the truth is, it's hard to look into the future.
She lost her soulmate. She lost her companion. She now cares for her child instead of her husband. When they first met, they were inseparable because they wanted to be together. Now they're inseparable because they have to be together because he can't be left by himself. She worries about him constantly if she's not around him.
What if something happens to me? What if I'm not healthy? What if, I get hurt? Or what if, then yeah, it does scare me that one day I might not be able to take care of him. And so I have anxiety about that.
The family rallied for these past 5 years, but it is not sustainable, and the professional services David needs are expensive. According to Cameron Parker, a certified life care planner, the cost of David's care over his lifetime in today's dollars will vary between $1,700,000 and $7 million. Becky doesn't like to think about one option, putting David in a nursing home.
But believe me, there's times where I try to imagine what it would be like to have to make that kind of decision. And with me, it's like I visualized actually doing it, and I can't visualize doing that.
This family remembers what David used to be like, the talkative, sociable man who wrote poems about violence in the black community.
When will it end, black men? When will it end?
Then there was David the artist. His sense of design and use of color came naturally. It's why he was hired by Cutting Edge, a concrete business specializing in decorative work.
And not so starchy in a sense, if you want to say, for what you would think to be a work uniform, Literally, I think it was almost overnight, Dave came in with our Dave's enthusiasm and thanking me regularly, very humbling, about giving him the opportunity to do the things we were doing, to work the job that he had, and was very proud of that, And I could see that there was a lot of I want to call it hope, but when you know your future is looking great ahead of you because of what's happening, I would definitely hire Dave back.
David will never again be that energetic artist able to see the world in shapes and vibrant colors. Doctors say this is as good as his brain is going to get. Becky won't give up. She encourages him to use the magic markers. She always hopes a little bit of the husband she fell in love with will come back to her.
Sometimes I look at him and I see him struggling, because he won't shower. He has to have a bath because he's his head wet. It totally freaks him out. So I have to bathe him. And and I watch this man that I love and that was so vibrant and so much energy and so physically fit and so struggle to get in and out of the bathtub. Yeah, I get really mad, and really hurt, and just I don't understand it. But I can't hold on to that because it just will eat me up.
David started drawing and writing poetry in prison. Now he's in a prison of another kind.
Woe is me, kings and queens. Woe is me.